Welcome to the Becoming Sound podcast, where we dive into the tough stuff and try to find the humor in the hot mess of being an adult child. Join me as we peel back the layers on growing up in dysfunction, navigating substance abuse, mental health challenges, and everything in between. Hi, Happy New Year. Wow, 2025. Can't believe it's already here. So I was just looking back on 2024 as I was scrolling through my photos to kind of get a handle on what I went through last year and all the things that I did and all of my wins. And I realized that so much happened to me. So here's a little recap. I started in Al-Anon in the fall of 2023, but after watching my son battle his addiction and find recovery, and knowing that it's a family disease for sure, I had my own stuff to deal with, right? And so I decided to look at my own behaviors and just tackle what was keeping me stuck. And I figured if he was brave enough to do it, then so was I. So in January of 2024, I took an opportunity when a 12-step group come up just to go through the 12 steps, and I didn't hesitate. I knew I needed to jump right in, so that's what I did. I met some new friends. I faced a lot of fears and a lot of shit that I had been holding on to, and as I worked through all that, I have to say it was probably one of the scariest and most insightful things that I've ever done for myself. And especially step 4, if you know, you know, it's a tough step and you have to look at yourself and all of your stuff and behaviors. And honestly, it was probably the wake up call and the kick in the ass that I really needed. It wasn't just about all the bad stuff or stuff that I need to work on. It was also about my good qualities and the strengths that I had not been acknowledging, and, you know, listening to that negative voice in your head all the time. I was always being so hard on myself. So I did that work in January, February, March, and it set my mental and emotional game on a new course. And I just have a side note too. If you have someone in your life who is struggling with an addiction or a substance use disorder, and they're struggling, chances are in some way, even though you might not have the addiction, you're struggling too. So I highly recommend finding some sort of support group. Doesn't have to be Al-Anon. It can be something else. There's lots out there. So you just want to get in touch with someone, maybe a therapist or someone just to talk some stuff through, because it's not easy to deal with on your own, and we're not supposed to. So it could change your life in a lot of positive ways. And I know it's scary, but it's definitely worth the work. So anyways, after I did that, I didn't really realize it, but all of that deeper work that I was doing had opened me up to new opportunities, positivity, and just better things in my life. So in April, I went with a friend of mine to just this weekend workshop. I didn't, think anything was going to come of it. And I met my new life coach there, which was awesome. So I started to work with her, and I challenged myself on some mindset stuff that I was stuck to. And then I created a vision and a clear path for myself, just on things I really wanted to do, things that I loved in my life, things I hadn't thought about before, and that led me to starting this podcast. And I've learned so much. I've shifted a lot of limiting beliefs. I have gained so much confidence in myself. And I've met so many incredible people. The people who come on this podcast to share their stories and insights with us, I'm so truly grateful for that. And the world that has opened up for me. I really love what I'm doing right now. And I wouldn't have dreamt I'd be doing this in 2024. So it's been a huge change for me, but I love it. Through all that work too, this year also brought me a lot closer and a deeper connection to my kids, my family, and to myself for sure. I did some traveling, which was amazing, and got closer to a group of like-minded people, which I'm so extremely grateful for. And then in October, my son and his girlfriend welcomed a baby boy. So I became a grandma for the first time. And that was probably the highlight of my year. Like, that little babe stole my heart the moment I laid eyes on him. It was pretty amazing. And he's so frigging cute. And he just started to smile now. So it's so awesome. And yeah, and then the last couple months, I've been trying to develop a group coaching program that I want to launch in the new year here, which actually brings me to the real topic that I want to discuss, because it's something that has kind of been happening for me in the last few months. So procrastination and why we succumb to distraction when we're trying to work on something or just get a task done. And it's so important to acknowledge where you've been and celebrate all the little wins along the way. But honestly, it's not all sunshine and roses too. I had a lot of great things happen this year, but it wasn't without some bumps and some deeper work. And sometimes that's scary. A lot of old programming and behaviors can come up. And I wanted to talk about procrastination because that seems to be a reoccurring pattern that I need to address. And I'm sure some of you out there are struggling with that as well. So, maybe can relate. And I know procrastination it's a common human tendency. It really is. For some people, finding the willpower to buckle down and power through is enough to get those occasional procrastinators back on track and to finish a task. But there's another 20% of us who are chronic procrastinators. And it really has zero to do with time management and how organized you are, because I'm a really organized person and I can just relate to getting distracted so much. I mean, I have 3 calendars sitting in front of me. It's not a question of whether I'm organized. And I can be highly focused. I can be really structured person. And at times I still feel myself succumbing to feeling lazy, unproductive. And then I start getting hard on myself and I start to spiral pretty fast if I don't get a handle on it and become aware. Like the last couple months before Christmas, I was on a bit of a roller coaster with this pattern. Okay, a bit is not really accurate. I was on a big ass roller coaster with this stuff. Like, I'm working at something on my computer, trying to, focus and use my time wisely. And the next thing I know, I am scrolling aimlessly on my phone. I'm staring out the window, I'm organizing papers on my desk, or I've completely moved to the couch and I've been binge watching some series on Netflix. Like, it's gotten that bad. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's your intention, but my intention was not to do that on that day or a few days. So before we all go getting really down on ourselves, I'm going to tell you that you're not lazy. You're just scared. And procrastination doesn't have a lot to do with self-control or motivation. So why are we doing it? That was my big question. And I do realize that it's a coping mechanism. It's a way to avoid unpleasant or boring tasks or just temporarily make myself feel better by doing something else. It's complete distraction. And if you come from a dysfunctional home or upbringing, like me, this is often rooted in fear of failure, fear of success, even of not being perfect or not having everything work out in this exact way you think it should, which is true for me because I have perfection tendencies. It also could be like from a trauma response. So for a person who has unconsciously triggered a traumatic memory that really hasn't been fully processed, I've heard others say, and I've even said this to myself, that it's just who I am, or this is just how I operate. If it's a coping mechanism, then I know it's not who I am. And I truly do know that. I didn't years ago. I would have turned that back on myself and beat myself up about that. But with the work I've done and all of that, I do know that it is not who I am. It's just maybe something that happened to me that's triggering it, or, it's something I can conquer. So I can change it. I can become aware. I can change it. It's a choice. I can put some practices in place for myself before I'm 3 episodes into Love is Blind. And I don't even know how I got there. So the question is, how do we know where it's coming from? And how do we change our patterns? How do we recognize and how do we move forward? I think part of it stems from overthinking too. I know there's so much of that being talked about in the open, and I can be an overthinker. You know, you don't have to go through trauma just to overthink or any of this, but I definitely overthink things. And I think from time to time, we chronically fall into that overthinking trap, because it is a trap. It's stories we're telling ourselves inside our head, right? I get worried about the big picture and what it's all going to look like. And then I get overwhelmed and I just kind of come to this halt and go into this freeze response that is second nature to me sometimes when you're dealing with past programming. I can literally zone out. I can find something else to do to detach myself, which makes me feel better in the moment, but makes me feel worse in the long run. I am guilty of getting distracted all the time. I see something that needs cleaning, that I'm famous for that, and I go off as an excuse to hide from what I'm afraid to face. Or maybe it's about being vulnerable or facing myself, facing my stuff. Maybe it's a lot about being not perfect at things. And so if I'm busy, I don't have to look at that. And when I'm doing something else, I'm still feeling productive because I put myself in that other task. And at least that's what I tell myself. And then days later, weeks later, and for some people, honestly, years go by and you're just still stuck in the same exact place with the same patterns, getting the same results. And I have been in that spot. And then it creates a cycle of beating myself up. And it just goes over and over and over because I haven't achieved what I wanted to in the first place. I know a lot of people can relate to this scenario. So I've been reading Mel Robbins' book and I heard her say, imagine the task or project you're doing is like building a Lego structure. So without each piece, without each little block, in the right place, you can't build the house or the structure, whatever it is you're trying to build. So instead of overthinking and obsessing over the big picture and all of the stuff I have on my plate, what would be more productive and helpful is to break that task down into small little pieces, little manageable steps, just like building a Lego structure, one block at a time. Focus on one piece at a time. Don't move forward or look at the big picture until you've tackled that one little block. If that takes you 5 minutes or 5 hours, then that's what you devote to it. And then all of a sudden, your project starts to take shape and you can see all the little steps. You can see that you're actually creating something. And that gets so exciting because you start to feel accomplished. So I came up with a little plan and some things to put in place for myself moving forward into this new year so I can embrace a little more discipline, which I have a hard time with. And then I can see progress one step at a time. So here are the things that I'm going to be doing. Number one, I'm going to have a bigger awareness and acknowledge my emotions and my feelings and any internal dialogue that comes up for me. If I'm having fears or doubts or anxiety while I'm working, I can stop and ask myself, what am I really afraid of? What is really at the root of why I'm reacting this way? I can take a break. I can journal about it. I can talk through it with someone, break that fear down into small bite-sized pieces so that I can understand. Because once you understand something, it doesn't have the same hold on you and it doesn't have the same effect. You can actually do something about it. You know, you can act differently. You can change that programming. Number two, I can reframe the negative thoughts that come up and replace them with more realistic, positive ones. Like, what's one small thing I can do right now in this moment that will help move me forward? Not 10 things, just one thing. I can ask myself, what if it all turns out great? Well, if I stay stuck, I will never know. And I know I want to get this accomplished. So what if it actually works? What if I'm great at it? And number three, so I'm going to set a timer for myself. This is a great little tool. When I sit down to work, if I know that 20 minutes works for me, or 10 minutes, whatever it is, I will put my timer on for that amount. if I notice I start to drift, I can stop. I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to get up, stretch, shake it out, do some deep breathing or mindfulness practice. And then I can sit back down kind of refreshed and renewed and work for another 20 minutes if that's what I do. And if 20 minutes doesn't work each time, it's nothing set in stone. That's the beauty of choice. I can change it. Number 4, I can change my surroundings. I can clear away the distractions from my work area, move my phone to a completely different room. That works really well, unless it is your phone that you use. You might want to log out of all of those social medias then and just give yourself a break from that. I can get my desk organized in a way that it provides minimal distraction for me. Just stuff like that. Just getting yourself organized so you sit down and you're set up for success. Number 5, I can reduce the amount of decisions I make in a day. Honestly, our lives are so filled with busyness and so many decisions we have to make. We always put so much on our plates every day. And reducing the amount of tasks or the amount of decisions we have to make in that day allows me to be more present with what I'm actually doing. And then I don't get so overwhelmed. Sometimes some of those decisions and all of those busyness things you have on your plate, you can scroll through them and eliminate some for sure. Set some aside, pick the most important ones. And number 6, I can break down the tasks into smaller, more doable pieces. Just like the Lego blocks, then I can see each step completed. I feel accomplished, and that always helps keep me motivated and keeps me more on track. And yeah, those are just some of the things. I didn't want to create, 20 things because I didn't want to get overwhelmed with all the stuff I'm trying to put into place. It's more about listening to what feels good, finding some practices that work for you, and setting everything up so that you've set yourself up for success. So that's pretty much the main goals. And most of these practices and small changes are simple, but they're not always easy, and there is a difference. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes practice, and it takes some compassion with yourself. I didn't get to all these revelations on my own either. I had help. I had a coach who helped me dig deep, pull out what I really felt passionate about, what infused energy into me. She helped me gain awareness, helped me do some mind shifting. I also got the opportunity to take a look where I really wanted to make change. If you don't want to change or move forward for things, maybe you're just obsessing over it and you really don't want to do it. And you can just let it go. If the project or task is really important to you, you'll put your attention and your intention there. And that's really important to distinguish whether it's something that you really want to be doing, something that you're really passionate about. Becoming aware of all this stuff, it helps make the changes in my life and tackle some of these reoccurring coping mechanisms and patterns. And I feel like I can move forward with a clear vision and confidence to grow and trust that with small steps in a plan, I can get unstuck. I can stop feeling overwhelmed, and that I will create the change and growth in the areas that I really want to. So yeah, I know there's a lot of people that can relate. So if this sounds like you and you are feeling stuck in a procrastination pattern, you get distracted easily, or you feel like you're making yourself busy to avoid other things in your life, like you're spinning on a hamster wheel. Maybe you're avoiding things that cause you to feel scared or bring up fear. And you'd really like to dive in to dissect all that and see what you can create for yourself. I'd love to work with you. I have a few spots open to work with people one-on-one. And if you want to create a clear vision for yourself, if you'd love to tackle the overwhelm and address the fears and get off the hamster wheel and feel like you're actually moving forward and growing, I can help you create a plan that moves you forward, one Lego block at a time. So if this is you, shoot me a message. I can send you a link. We can have a free call And yeah, my contacts are in the show notes, or you can find me at kristazaff.com to learn more. So I'm excited about putting these steps into action and to see what I can create for myself in this new year. And I'm really excited to grow the podcast and grow my business. And I'm so grateful that you've been here with me. So have a beautiful day and Happy New Year's, and cheers towards growth, discipline, and moving forward in 2025. Thank you for joining me today on another episode of Becoming Sound. If this episode resonated with you in some way, please share it with someone you care about. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It helps to get this information out to more people who may need it. If you have a sec, I would love a follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. While you're there, hit the 5-star rating and give me a review. When you're scrolling, follow me on my social platforms, and I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Have a fabulous day, lots of love and gratitude from me. Please note, the views, information, and opinions expressed during the Becoming Sound podcast series are solely those of the individuals involved. The content of this podcast is to educate, inform, and for entertainment purposes only. This podcast series and the content presented does not constitute for medical or other professional advice or services. If you are in crisis or in need of help, please contact your medical or professional provider.